Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. I am Lady Vivian Pruitte, and today joining me, I am so excited to have two of my daughters, one actually biological and the other one who another mother actually birthed for me. So ladies, Delana and Danielle, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
We actually did something very exciting recently that we want to talk to you guys about today. We went to a book tour for Michelle Obama, The Light We Carry, and we had a fantastic time. We had a great time. So today I asked the ladies to join me so we can talk about some of the things that we enjoyed as Michelle Obama was speaking to us. And we'll be calling her Michelle because, you know, we feel close to her like that. So let me start by saying, ladies, how long have you been a fan of Michelle Obama?
Since her husband was on his presidential campaign.
Wow.
That's when I first was introduced to her. Was it the Democratic convention where she made her first speech?
Yes.
I was very enamored. I've been enamored since then.
Okay, all right. Wonderful.
Likewise, I would say the same, when President Obama was being introduced to the world as a presidential candidate, and we were introduced to his family and his beautiful wife. She was strong, she was opinionated, she had a voice that she didn't mind sharing. I was definitely very impressed.
Okay, and I would say I was around the same time, but I think when I really became a fan of her was when we read her first book, when we read her Becoming. Oh my gosh, that's when I read that book, that's when I feel that I really became a fan, just because I got to hear the story behind the woman. You know, she was always portrayed as, yes, definitely comes across as a strong woman, an opinionated woman, a very accomplished woman. But when I read the story behind, I was like, oh, wow, now I'm really a fan. So anyway, so let's start by talking a little bit about the book tour, because it was wonderful. We had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and listen to her. And I actually liked the setting. That theater itself was kind of intimate. We weren't at the Verizon Center. So this theater felt more intimate. And I felt like we were sitting pretty close to her. Did you guys feel that at all?
We had really good seats.
We did.
Our seats were better than what my camera could even capture. We had really good seats right in the center.
We did.
Yes. I love that we were right center. And actually, when I took the pictures, I was able to actually get a clear shot of her face, where normally, when you're at the Verizon Center or whatever, you get like this little speck.
Yeah. You have to take a picture of the jumbo screen at the
right.
yes, to get a clearer picture. All right, so let's talk about some of the points that Michelle talked about. And one of the things that I remember is she talked about that we have to be intentional about having friends. And she was talking about how important that was. So what stuck with you about when she was talking about that, being intentional about having friends?
I think for me, I was struck by how, you have this woman who is, at the top of life in so many ways. She's been the first lady. She has this incredible platform. And yet she, even at this, this height in life, she recognizes the importance of friendships, and I think it helps to make her relatable and humanizes her. She just like us, she wants to come and talk with her girlfriends and, chat about things that are going on in her life. And just in her role, particularly as First Lady, she talked about how she had to be intentional because, in the White House, it's not like, oh, she could just invite people over to come talk or spend an afternoon, but she really had to plan it out. And so I thought that was really important and just a good reminder for myself not to get so busy that you don't spend time with your friends.
I think also a point that she kind of made was that, girlfriends are your safe space. That's where you can really let your hair down. She couldn't just give, her innermost feelings in an interview, because it could be taken any kind of way, but she needed a safe place where she could say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. And I think that's very important.
And actually, it's so funny because I remember her talking about a friend that she actually, a lady that she actually befriended, who was one of the, she had their daughters were in the same school. And it was so funny because she invited her to visit, hey, come to the White House and visit, to her, the daughters were having a play date. And when she came and she talked about, she said how her friend was definitely not ready for all the what's it called, these the security and the Secret Service that said do not come out of the car.
Yeah, guns and everything.
Right.
Yes, that's so funny. But she said they actually got to be great friends. So another thing I thought about is that she talked about how one of the things that she felt was so important for her when she became First Lady was to maintain a sense of normalcy for her daughters. That was very important to her. And she even said that she was criticized about it. And of course, people always criticize no matter what you say or what you do. But I thought it was so poignant that she talked about trying to keep that for her daughters. Imagine trying to keep that when you have Secret Service people following you everywhere you go, And but she really tried hard to keep that. And I remember reading even in her last book where she talked about having play dates for her daughters. So they actually came, girls actually came to the White House and got to spend time with her daughters. What did you guys think about that?
No, I thought that was good. I remember in her first book when she was writing about how she, in the White House, you have ushers and maids and butlers and things. I remember she specifically told the staff, do not make my daughter's beds. They need to be able to make them up, themselves. And I thought that was very important because, they're, they enter into this new lifestyle as children, and you want to kind of, keep them a little humble. That way, when they grow up and they're out of the White House, they know how to do their own laundry when they go to college. You know what I mean? Things like that.
No, absolutely. I remember that from Becoming, that story. And in my mind, I was thinking, her girls were so young. I think Sasha was maybe 6 or 7 when they entered the White House. It's different if maybe the girls had been older, so they had really had a life and a longer and fuller life outside of the White House. But so much of their formative years were in the White House and with the Secret Service and the ushers and the maids and all of those things. And so I think just, her commitment to, like you said, making sure that they did their own chores, making sure that they could have friends over. And that's why, we don't hear scandals about them now, because I think, she and, their family, her husband, they helped to raise them in such a way that, hey, this is just a place that we are right now. But this is not your identity. And, there's we want to make sure you are a well-rounded individual, women, and, grow and to be productive citizens. And so I thought that was really, really key.
Yes, I love that. Another thing that she's very passionate about, very, very passionate about, she talked about it, was exercise.
Right.
She is so passionate about exercise. And she told us, I don't know if you guys remember when she was telling us the story of how she was able to bring her two passions, having friends and exercise together, and was able to do it.
Yeah, she talked about how, because it was hard to bring her girlfriends into the White House, when they came, they had to give their driver's license and social security numbers and all these things. So she's like, why not go to a place where we can be free and be outdoors? So she would take her girlfriends to Camp David. And I think her girlfriend who was moderating was talking about how she had arranged for Marines, actual US Marines, to lead the exercises. They were exercising 3 times a day. I was like, ooh, that's a commitment.
Yes.
But I mean, she was very passionate, and look at her. I think it shows. She says she's 59, 58 or 59 years old. And it shows.
And she looks great. She looks great.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I need to start. I don't know about 3 times a day, but
that's a lot.
No, and I think it's really important, especially in the Black community, to talk about exercise and good health. I think she adopted it as her personal lifestyle, but I think she's very intentional when she talks about how health is important. I mean, she had the Let's Move initiative, I think, when she was the first lady and everything. And so eating healthy, being active, I think she really modeled that. And even just among her friends, and it was like, hey, we're not just gonna have high blood pressure and diabetes and become overweight. Let's get active. And so I appreciated that.
Yeah, I like that. And remember, even when she was at the White House, I remember she would bring kids in and they would grow gardens.
Yeah.
They would grow gardens. So I thought that was very, very nice. And she said, she loved her friends and she wants them to be around for a while. Yeah. So I thought that was awesome for her. Excuse me. Another thing she talked about was and let me try to remember exactly the words that she used. She talked about investing time and having layers of talk with people to really get to know them and understand them. And she even shared some funny stories about that.
Oh gosh. I loved how she was very transparent and she said she was the nosy friend. Like, she's like, I'm the one that asks the questions. I don't let them just kind of go. But I think, right, just stay at the surface. She's like, okay, now what is that really about? What you really see? She's like, I'm like the comedic therapist and I just get all up in their business. But you kind of have to have that, and it's creating a safe space with your friendships, among your girlfriends or your safe space where you can begin to reveal a bit of yourself. You don't do it all at once. No one's just unbearing their soul the first time you meet them. At least I hope you're not. But as you get to know one another, and I do think it helps when you have someone in the friend group who doesn't mind pulling a little bit to kind of get you, as they're sharing, themselves as well, but just to kind of get you to open up a little bit more, because I think there's freedom and unburdening when we can be our full selves with people.
Yeah,
go ahead. Well, I was thinking
when she said, I'm sorry. I was thinking when she said, when you have layers of talk with people, when you really get to know them, because she says, then you find out, oh, that's why you're crazy, because your mama was crazy.
Right. And I think also with that, as you go deeper in the layers, you realize how much you have in common.
Yes.
She spoke a lot about how, we have a lot more in common than we think. Someone who may not look like you, but there are shared experiences that you won't know until you kind of have those layered conversations.
Yes, and because you have to dig deep, and also especially for her, being in the position that she was in, she really, really had to be intentional about getting to know people and her friends, because in her position, she can only have a kind of a smaller group of really close friends where she can let her hair down, as they say, because you can't just say, let me tell you what, your president did today.
There's a temptation to be isolated. I can imagine, that if she had not been intentional in that way, to just kind of stay in her own cocoon, maybe just stay with just her four and no more, if you will. But, would her experience in the White House and in that role have been as rich, as fulfilling? Maybe externally, we might not have seen much of a difference, but internally, what that would have done to her or for her, and in terms of her just being a whole and healthy woman. Yes. So.
And even she talked about isolation a lot, especially during the COVID, and she was really admonishing us and people not, that it's not normal to be isolated. We need human interaction, human relations. And, she said, we really need to kind of break out of isolating ourselves and getting to know people and building and developing relationships, because that's so important. Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about is her. She talked a lot about her parents. And I want to touch first on her mother. She talked about her mother actually modeled motherhood for her. And she shared a little bit about what that actually meant. So what do you guys remember when she was talking about her mother, how her mother really invested in her and her brother?
I think for me, I was really struck by how she said her mom told them she wasn't raising children, she was raising adults. And so that meant putting on them, growing up, teaching them responsibility, putting the onus, for instance, for their education. I think she shared this story where, she was in kindergarten and they had alarm clocks, and in my mind, I'm thinking I've got children who've passed kindergarten, and I go and I wake them up in the morning, and yet, her mom said, hey, I already got my education. If you want to go to school and and be educated, then you need to get up and know how to get up for yourself and start your day. And so I don't know, that's something I've even just since that conversation that we were able to listen in on, I've been thinking to myself, okay, what are ways that I can put some greater just autonomy or, self, decision making in my children so that they can be better, well-rounded adults? Because you're right, they won't be children for forever. I don't want them to be children for forever. I want them to grow up and to, to go out and do their own thing. And so I thought,
and move out of your house.
Exactly.
And I was also thinking about how, she, hold on, I lost my train of thought.
Modeling motherhood, we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. But I was going to say, she also talked about how, her mom made her walk to school, and they lived in the South Side of Chicago. And, part of me was like, oh boy, I don't know if I could do that, in today's, and I feel like today's is different today. Times are a little different, but I also, what Danielle was just saying is putting kind of more responsibility on your children. I was thinking about how, kind of maybe when we were younger, our parents didn't really care about our feelings so much or want to hear our feelings. So I know as I parent my children, before, I fly off the handle, I want to hear, what was your thought process? What are you feeling? And then let's process through those feelings and those thoughts before I just lay their hammer down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what you were mentioning when she said that she had to walk to school in the South Side of Chicago, and everybody knows, especially back then, South Side of Chicago is the South Side of Chicago. And I thought about it, and it reminded me of me growing up in the inner city. And I actually had to take, since I was 6 years old, I would take a public school bus to school. A public school. When I think about it now, I couldn't even imagine putting my child. Can you imagine putting Benjamin?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And sending them off, and in the city. I lived in Manhattan, but this is what we did. But I think it helped build a couple of things in me, and I wonder if this is what Michelle's mom was trying to put in her also. Is one, you have to get to know people of all walks of life.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Of all walks of life, because that's what you're going to see. And then also to not have that fear of people, because when you're in the inner city, somebody from the suburbs or a rural area would be like, oh, wow, inner city people are, they're all dangerous or whatever. And there's so much danger in the inner city. But when you're in it and you're in the mix of it and you're going every day and walking around every day, you don't have that fear. You don't have that fear. But now, of course, that I'm a suburban mom,
right.
like a suburban mom or whatever, then you do have that fear, because that's not your everyday, that's not your normal for you. So I think that's another thing that her mom was kind of trying to instill in her also. Yeah, so that was very interesting. And she said she had a great mom. She felt she was very well mothered, her and her brother. And they have a great relationship even today. She also talked about her father, which I didn't understand. And I guess I read the book, but I must have missed it. I knew he had some kind of debilitating ailment, but I didn't realize it was MS. Didn't realize that it was MS. So when she talked about MS, she said it was a little bit different for them whenever they were going to do things because of her father's MS. So let's share some of the difficulties that she talked about that they had to always consider whenever they were going to do something as a family.
Yeah, she read an excerpt that she wrote in the book, where she was talking about how it was everywhere they went, they had to consider, how many stairs are there going to be? If we go to a park, how many benches? Is there going to be a place where dad can sit and rest? Are there going to be cobblestone streets or sidewalks where, he could trip and fall and things like that? And that really, when she read it, it really, really struck me, because, I don't know, that's just not my reality. I never had to think about things like that.
Mhm.
But, if you think about it, it doesn't just have to be someone with a disability. It could be, someone who's in poverty, someone who is an immigrant, just you have to think about these things. Okay, if, let's say, if I'm someone who wore a hijab, and I go places, how are people going to look at me?
Yeah.
If I'm going, somewhere and, I'm homeless and I'm dressed a certain way, how are people going to think about me? It really it made me pause and really think about, my perspective and point of view on things and how I see other people.
Wow.
I thought it was also beautiful in how, even in her father's physical disabilities, she talked about the strength that her father had, and that was, it was, to me, he still seemed a very strong man, if that makes sense. Like physically, he needed supports and things like that, but it was obvious in just how she, reflected on him and their home and the love in the house, that he had a certain level of pride, as a man, of course, and just the strength that he carried. And even to your point, Delana, I imagine, if when we look at people whose life experiences are different than ours, and it's so easy, if we're not careful, to look at certain things as a deficit, right? They're having to go through this, or they're experiencing this. But internally, that may not be their perspective. And so we shouldn't just put it on them. They still have dignity. They still have a strength. It might look differently than how we carry ourselves or how we carry our strength. But I don't know. I was just impressed by to me, she seems like a daddy's girl is what she comes across. And she loves her dad, and it has such good memories and respect, and I'm excited to read the book. I haven't read the book yet, but to read the chapter on her father, because I think that will just pour through.
Yes, I definitely think so. And even looking back at Becoming, when she talked about her father, I remember one incident that she talked about that really struck me. And it was one day, I guess her father was heading off to work, and by this time his illness had really progressed, but he got up every day and went to work. So he got up, he went to work, and she heard him fall outside, and she kind of ran to the door. Then she stopped and she looked through the peephole, and she was watching him as he struggled and got himself up. But she never went and said, "Hey, Dad, let me help you. Let me get you up," because she knew that her dad was a prideful man, and he did not want help. He did not let that disability stop him, and it didn't stop him from being a great dad. She felt like her parents, one of the things that I think that sticks with me the most about her parents is that they invested in her and her brother. Like, they were like, no, you guys are our investment, and we're going to pour into you as much as we can. Motherhood, fatherhood, and everything else, autonomy and independence. We're going to put in you all these tools that are going to help you become, great productive citizens. And of course, both of them turned out to be great productive citizens, if you can say that. Definitely. So I thought that was very, very key point about her parents. So, but anyway, I absolutely love the event. If you have an opportunity, we would love for you to go see it. And I'm going to ask Danielle if you can actually hold up the book so we can see it, because we are so excited, the light we carry. And as a matter of fact, I haven't read the book yet, but my copy's here, so I'm gonna be reading.
I was gonna say, in our defense, her book tour started the day the book came out the day her book tour started, so we wouldn't even have to read it yet.
So don't be critical of us, please.
I will say that I have the book, but I also downloaded it on Audible, so I started to listen to it, and I love Audible because she is the one narrating it, so it sounds like she's actually talking to you. So I got through maybe about the first hour. The book on Audible, the book is about 9 hours long compared to Becoming. Becoming was 19 hours long. So this book I would say is probably going to be a much easier read and quicker to get through, but I'm very excited to get started.
Yes, I'm excited to read it also. And I actually listened to Becoming with Audible and the book because again, I love that she is the narrator. And
Yeah.
it was like she was just, I was sitting in her living room and she's telling you the story. I love
Yeah.
that about her. So excuse me. So anyway, ladies, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Let's Talk and sharing about the person that we're such a fan of, Michelle Obama. If you get the opportunity, we would say definitely go and try to join in on this book tour. It's very limited though, and they sell out everywhere she
Yes,
goes.
they really have.
And one last thing I wanted to share is that the hosts that she's been getting, they've been really great. We ended up with one of her friends and she was awesome. And I felt like Michelle just let her hair down with us. Like she was just talking to all we were all her friend sitting around
Her BFFs.
I definitely felt like she's one of us. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yes. So we definitely love that. We love that. All right. So thank you again. So I would ask you to stay tuned. And I can't even believe this is the last Let's Talk for the year. So next year, we're going to be talking about something else. I don't know yet. Be praying for me. God bless you. I love you. And we'll tune in for next year and see what we're going to talk about. Bye-bye.